pocket, I don't. Thank you. Boy, talk about a hard act to follow. Good morning. I'm Steve Leapley. I'm a member of your Board of Trustees, and I'd like to welcome here today At UCOV, we strive to be a beacon of liberal religion and a refuge for all who seek welcoming community, no matter your color, creed, ability, or class, no matter who you love, your gender expression, political affiliation, or religious belief. How we celebrate our differences is how we learn from each other. Now, we have various different ways for you to learn more about us. You can go to our ucov.org or our Facebook page. Now, I found a quote last evening that I think answers a lot of questions as to what UUs are. It's a quote from Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. UUs are a part of a lineage of people who choose life and who choose love and who choose each other. And we won't let up pushing for the spiritual and reimagination and renewal of our system. I think that really touches us. Now, we have several announcements. First one, there is a holiday party. It's going to be at the Bellagio Clubhouse on Tuesday, December 14th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to have the Garage Band, which includes Khleber, Mark Murray, and others. It was done a few years ago. It was wonderful. However, it's a very small venue, so you must sign up with my lovely wife or Paula Hartley on the lanai after the service. Secondly, we have the used book sale on December 4th. And that's going to be on the lanai. That's a Saturday. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. All proceeds will go to CHAPS. Now, Richard Palmer has a short announcement he's going to give, and I will bring the microphone down to him. Got the green light. Put it right up. Right up.
Okay. Can you hear it now?
At this time, I'd like to turn the pulpit. Oh,
I would just like to quickly thank Richard and Pam for all that they did to make this possible for the congregation. This was truly a successful event.
yes, it was. And now, we're glad to join us today. The service will be conducted by our settled minister, Reverend Khleber Van Zandt.
The announcements continue. It is so good to see the choir back, is it not? With their director, Dr. Marcel Leonard, and welcome back, Marcy and Gary. If you were watching the rolling slides on the screens, or you've seen something else that says there is a gratitude tree coming in December, there is in fact going to be a gratitude tree up here in the corner. Not a big tall fern or fir, but not that. So get ready to bring your own decorations indicating the things you are grateful for. That comes in December. Venice Interfaith Thanksgiving service is not live again this year, but online, and that is at 7 o'clock. It'll be live at 7 o'clock on our website or Venice Interfaith's website. Then it will be up for the foreseeable future. So that's Venice Interfaith's Thanksgiving service this Wednesday at 7. In December, on Thursdays, we have changed the days over the years, but we have done some fairly simple Advent services in this space. If you've been here, you know they're pretty quiet. There's some recorded music, there's some readings. If you're interested in having a quiet half hour, 45 minutes on a Thursday afternoon at 4 in December, please come. Please mark your calendar for those things. In here? So we won't do that at 4. Look for an announcement about Advent services. You know, that is the mark of an exciting congregation, when you can't find space anywhere for your program. So I'm glad to have this issue. Number 5, we are going to inter Marty King's ashes in the Memorial Garden on Wednesday at 3 p.m. This Wednesday at 3 p.m. If you would like to attend that interment of Marty's ashes, the King family is gathering. They will be here, and Bruce told me that you are all also invited this Wednesday at 3. The prelude begins our worship. Our call to worship this morning comes from the late poet Stephen Dunn. Just when it has seemed I couldn't bear one more friend waking with a tumor, or one more maniac with a perfect reason. Often a sweetness has come and changed nothing in the world except the way I stumble through it. Let us worship together this morning. Our first hymn is number 68, Come Ye Thankful People. I invite you to rise up as you're willing and able. Come ye thankful people, come, praise the song of harvest home. Fruit and crops are gathered in, safe before the storms begin. God our Maker will provide for our needs to be supplied. Come to God's own temple, come, praise the song of harvest home. All the world is but a field, given for a fruitful yield. Wheat and tares together sown, here for joy or sorrow known. First the blade and then the ear, then the full corn shall appear. God of harvest, grant that we wholesome, green, and pure may be. And if you'd remain standing, we have a responsive reading. It's called Holy Ground by Lisa Friedman. And the words are on the screens. We touch the floor. We reach for the sky. We hold hands. We join voices. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue. Please be seated. Our children have their own religious education class by Zoom each Sunday at 10 a.m. I understand that most of them have now been vaccinated and they will be back on the campus soon, as crossing fingers. But still they're on Zoom. So if you would like to attend or help your child to attend, login information for that meeting can be found on our website at uucov.org or on our Facebook page. This morning, I found a poem by a member of this congregation, Dawn Spitz. Dawn says that she and her family will be back here next Sunday, but she could not be here this Sunday to read it. I will read for her and welcome her next week. Dawn wrote a poem she calls Gratitude. Have you blessed the earth today? Did you thank the sun, our mother and our father, of whom we are all one? Did you stop to kiss a rosebud or to thank a passing bee? Were you grateful for the sound of rain? Did you think to hug a tree? Was your spirit joyous for the miracle of spring, for the beauty of a lilac, for the song a robin sings? Were you mindful of the sunset or the brilliance of a star? And did you thank the universe for the wonder that you are? Did you have a prayerful attitude towards creatures great and small? Do you know that gratitude is the greatest prayer of all? Have you blessed the earth today? Did you thank the sun, our mother and our father, of whom we all are one? So ends Dawn's poem. This is going to work. This is working. I don't hear it. I can scream. Can you scream? Okay. If you've brought any celebrations with you to church this morning, I'll bring you the microphone and see if you have any better luck than I have with it.
People. There's a blue collection basket out on the social action table. And thank you if you brought something this week.
Thank you. Other celebrations?
Is the mic working, or I'll just talk louder? All right, I'm going to talk louder. This is not a celebration, except that it's a celebration of the passing of the basket. I noticed that many people are still very confused exactly what we're doing. Number of years ago, we had decided to stop passing the basket and have donation boxes, and it was going to be an experiment seeing if we got the same or more money doing it that way. It turned out that in the beginning we did get the same amount of money, but it quickly dwindled away. In 2019, the board discussed returning to the passing of the baskets. We had conversations with this community, many in this building, and a decision was made to start passing the baskets in April of 2020. It did not happen for obvious reasons. So we have started passing the baskets again. So 3 weeks of the month, we will be passing the basket for us, and 1 week we will be passing it for a charity that we had decided about for at the annual meeting. So I hope that clears it up for everybody.
Are there any celebrations?
I don't need the mic.
Oh, good.
When he gets a new knee tomorrow, is that a celebration? Well, Sally Herbert's going to get one next week. She's on my communications committee. But these are coming in.
Excellent. Celebrations. Now, this is not working, so just scream out.
Plenty loud. My name is Mike. My sister-in-law had ovarian cancer, and she had an 8-hour surgery this week, and she came through it brilliantly. Everyone was pleased, and we certainly are.
Celebrations. If you've brought any sorrows with you to church this morning, I will also try to bring you the mic. Sorrows, sir.
I don't know if it'll work or not. Anyway, I can speak. I'm known to speak loudly.
This may be going out over.
Oh, yes, of course. I get it. I'm a little short of gratefulness this morning due to the national events. I'm sad that it seems that accountability can be so difficult to deal with in our society, and that huge numbers of people are actually celebrating suffering and death. It makes me extremely sad, so that's my sadness.
Other sorrows. I'll remind you of the interment of Marty King's ashes on this coming Wednesday at 3. Also, will share with you that I went to visit Jack Smith and Jeannie McIntyre this week. Jack has now entered home hospice. I believe he's already turned 102, is that correct? So Jack's 102, he's in home hospice. I learned more than I needed to know about orchids from Jack this week. So Jack's doing pretty well. It was quite a conversation with him. He's just a lovely person, as is Jeannie. I hope you'll keep Jack and Jeannie in your thoughts and prayers. May the gratitude and celebrations among us this day become a blessing to us all. May the concerns and sorrows of each be carried in all our hearts. A burden shared become a load lightened. Our meditation will begin with thoughts from the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Ann Parker. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or to curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, to bind up wounds, to welcome the stranger, to praise what is sacred, to do the work of justice, or to offer love. Any of these also can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question. What will you do with your gifts? I say, choose to bless the world. We lift up those in this community who face change, challenge, or loss today, as we hold within our hearts all who suffer. And now we pray, each in our own ways, into the silence. The hopes of this community are offered forth in the names of all those who've gone before and in the names of all those who will come after, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. So the one microphone doesn't work, and the other one, one's too quiet, one's too loud. Good. The way my day is going. So Thanksgiving and baking have become synonymous to me. I think I must have been in my 30s by the time I decided I wanted to bake bread. I saw my parents baking bread, but they didn't start that until long after I had left their nest, so I didn't pick up any of their knowledge as a youth at all. They didn't have that. They didn't show it to me. So I just thought in my 30s, hey, what can be so hard? Well, on the one hand, it isn't rocket science. It isn't magic. On the other hand, it's totally science and completely magical. So, yeah, it's pretty simple, kinda. You mix flour, and the kind of bread I like to make is, takes a cup of white flour and a cup of wheat flour, just a little bit of sugar, and I have gone from a teaspoon to a couple of tablespoons and back and forth in the bread, not in my mouth. A pinch of salt, and importantly, some yeast. It depends on what you use as to what kind of bread you're going to end up with. The bakers among you know that you need to adjust those things to see what you want to get out of it, and no doubt you've got some hard-won experience, as I do. There's a science to the way you mix these ingredients. I'm sure there is. I don't know it. I know there's also something to the way you treat the dough after you've made it. When you get it right, yum. So the temperature, I know that the temperature I used to mix yeast in the old days had to be about the right temperature. And I think that was between 110 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The way I learned to do that, to get it that temperature, was to mix equal parts boiling water and ice water. Because boiling is 212, ice is 32, in the middle of that's 122, and I can't mix it fast enough to keep it 122, so it gets down to between 110 and 120. So you mix that yeast, you put it aside. Once you've got everything mixed up, and in the interest of time, I brought a ball of dough already. We'll see if it comes out of this bag. But it still needs work once you've gotten a ball of dough together. So let's see what we got. Oh, you're a love. Thank you. I happen to have one. Thank you. Is there anything else I'm missing? Okay. Brain cells. So what I have learned is that kneading is extremely important. If you don't knead this properly, it's going to turn out lifeless and tough, I guess you'd call it. So what happens when you're kneading dough is that you are pressing it back and forth, rolling it around, and what happens when you're doing this is you're stripping, as I understand it, you're stripping the hard shell off of each of the grains of flour. If you don't do that, like I said, it will be tough and just a big glob. So also, once we've got that kneaded well, I'm going to put it in my favorite bowl. And we'll just cover that up. Now what has to happen is we'll let it sit for a while. We'll see how long it is. And maybe in a couple of hours, we won't stay here that long. We'll need to mash it down and let it rise up again. Because if you leave it like this and it rises, what I've found is you have big air pockets. So you mash it down, let it rise again, and you've got smaller air pockets. So to recap, kneading means squeezing and squeezing again and again. And punching it down means to mash it out flat so that it has a chance to rise back up. Now we'll set these things aside. I think I should leave the apron on. Good. Okay. You ever had bad things happen to you? Have your friends gotten mad at you and called you names? You ever felt sad because a friend was sick or hurt? You ever felt awful because you know you did something? Because you know you did something wrong. All those things happen to me from time to time, and sometimes it has felt like I'd been kneaded and punched down, kind of like what happens to a loaf of bread. Certainly doesn't feel good all those times when I'm mad or sad or lonely or frustrated. The worst of those times, I admit, it seems like it's never going to be okay again. But like bread dough, maybe, just maybe, it's natural for us to feel kneaded and punched down every now and again so that we can have the chance to rise up and grow into something stronger. It's coming on Thanksgiving this week, and so I was thinking yet again about the Pilgrims. After the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock in 1620, during that very first winter, half of their people died. Now that's being punched down pretty hard and mashed pretty flat, I'd have to say. But they kept going. They rose up again, and the community grew stronger and stronger after that. And of course, all that is to say nothing of the trials the indigenous people suffered at the hands of those new Americans. Now, another example that came to mind is the Civil War. This country was beaten down during that war between the northern and the southern states. 1/10 of the military-age men in the whole country, 1/10, that's over 600,000 people, died in that war. Yeah, so what, you say? That's less than the 770,000 Americans who've died from COVID in the last year and a half. It's all bad, but 600,000 was a much larger percentage of the country at that point. And 600,000 Civil War dead are more Americans dead than in all the other wars this country has been engaged in combined. If that's not being kneaded and punched down, I don't know what is. And again, all that is to say nothing of all the trials of enslaved people that enslaved people have suffered at the hands of slave-owning and other Americans before that war ended, and in some ways to this very day. Abraham Lincoln, who was President of the United States during the Civil War, was ridiculed from all sides throughout the 4 long years that the Civil War lasted. U.S. presidents almost always age drastically during their time in office, but Lincoln was looking especially ragged, kneaded, punched down by the time the war was over. Then, in 1865, less than a week after Lee surrendered his army to Grant, Lincoln was shot and died the next morning on April 15th, Good Friday. 2 days later, on Easter Sunday of 1865, the Unitarian minister Henry Whitney Bellows. Bellows had formed the U.S. government's Sanitary Commission during the war that moved men and materiel around the country and helped win the war for the Union. And using what he had learned in that endeavor, Bellows had also helped Clara Barton get the Red Cross started. That Easter Sunday, Reverend Bellows climbed into his pulpit to preach a sermon to his congregation. There was so much grief. Grief over the war going on for so long, grief over the loss of so many people in the war, and now grief over the death of President Lincoln. He knew he needed to give the people some words of hope, something real to chew on. He needed to give his congregation that day a full loaf of spiritual sustenance, so to speak. I want to remember who Bellows was talking to that morning. It was a congregation of Boston Unitarians who, in 1865, were still mostly Christian. And because of that, Bellows preached that day by sort of talking about Jesus, but who he was really talking about, it slowly dawned on his congregation, was Lincoln. What Reverend Bellows said that day was, first, he reminded his listeners that there was, once upon a time, a good man who had many friends and followers, but none of those friends and followers could fully understand what the man had meant, what his words had meant, what his life had meant. Then that man was snatched away, was suddenly gone from their midst. And it was only after the man was no longer there that people could begin to understand the meaning of the things he'd said and done. In the case of Jesus, Bellows said that it was only in the absence of the man Jesus that the idea of Jesus could rise up and become something new. It was only after he'd been kneaded and punched down that Jesus could rise again. But then we can hear that applied to Lincoln as well. It was only in the absence of the man, Lincoln, that the idea of Lincoln could rise up and become something new. It was only after he'd been kneaded and punched down and mashed flat that Lincoln could rise again. And what I hear Henry Bellows, that Unitarian minister, doing is insinuating that it is perhaps this way for all of us. That yes, certainly we are all mortal, we all must die, but in other ways we are also all immortal and will rise again in some mysterious way of speaking. Perhaps we sometimes do benefit by being kneaded by life. We all seem to encounter things that wear that hard shell away so that we don't have to be so tough and lifeless anymore. It smells really good, but it's not warm enough in here to have filled this bowl up quite yet. I admit I don't wait well. There's no doubt that life sometimes punches us down and mashes us flat, which sometimes leaves us, which sometimes helps us leave the limitations of the life we currently know, so that we can, in some ways, become something new. Bellows told his Unitarian Christian congregants in 1865 that this had happened with Jesus. They understood what he meant, that Jesus had been misunderstood, kneaded, punched down, mashed flat, and then Bellows said, rose up to become something new. And so it happened with Lincoln. He was made fun of in awful ways, kneaded and punched down and mashed flat by worry and loss and the war. But he's only risen in stature in the last 150 years since his death. And so it happens with all of us. I hear Mr. Bellows implying. We get hurt, we suffer our losses, we get kneaded and punched down so that we can rise up again, stronger and more resilient than before. And so it happens with a loaf of bread. The dough needs to be kneaded and punched down and to rise again in order to become a full loaf and able to provide sustenance and nutrition for all who will partake of its goodness. But we'll have to wait for it to rise. So may it be. Our last hymn is going to be one by Woody Guthrie. And we'll see if this works out. I'm going to try to turn a couple of things on and see what happens. Hearing it. He actually did write these lyrics. So if one or two of them causes you to blink, he wrote them. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to New York Island, from the redwood forest to the stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Island, from the redwood forest to Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. property. On the other side, it didn't say nothing. This land was made for you and me. This land is yours. This land is my land. From California to New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Nobody living can ever stop me as I'm walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me. Our benediction is a responsive one, so there will be words on the screens. I believe, in general, and it will be true today at least for a few minutes, this is the east side, and this is the west side. If we want to talk about which is east and west, come talk to me in a minute. So pick a side, east or west, and we'll go through this responsive benediction. I'll just read all of them, I hope. Perhaps I should have said it just between the wine and the grace, the wishing and the blessing. That was a time for words. When the scene had just begun, before we had passed the dressing, before the knife cut deep into the breast, I might have paused, looked up, and all around into the eyes of each of them. A jest came easier. It passed into the sound and was lost. Between the stuffing and the pie was yet another quiet moment. Could have told them. Instead, I sighed and let it pass. Just once before the end, I should have cried. Listen, before you go, I love you. I just wanted you to know. Go in peace, walk softly on your paths, and may the light of love shine on you all your days.
We did it.
No.